partisan election education forums and produced voter guides for the past 25 years. As we've seen the political tenor of conversations degrade, Citizens Project is even more committed to creating space in our community where citizens can have civil conversations about difficult issues. We are honored to create a space for candidates to interact with voters in a respectful manner. Every candidate was invited to participate this evening and in our voter guide, regardless of political affiliation. And we're grateful to have those candidates who made a priority to connect here with you tonight. Events like this are only possible with the help from our co-sponsors and collaborators. Tonight we thank our sponsors, the League of Women Voters, the Independent Center, KONO, the Council of Neighbors and Organizations, ACLU, Colorado Nonprofit Association, and One Colorado Educational Fund. Additional sponsors include Planned Parenthood, Colorado Common Cause, and COPPER, the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak Region. For your friends and family who could not be here tonight, we are excited to announce that this is being recorded on audio by Studio 809, Colorado Springs' own local podcast collaborative. And obviously, our major media sponsor is KOAA-TV, who will be live streaming this and making it available for replay throughout the election. Just as a little Citizens Project pitch, we're excited that our voter guide will be published next week. You can find it on the 17th in the Colorado Springs Independent, the 19th in the Colorado Springs Business Journal, and of course on our website at citizensproject.org. We'd love to thank the League of Women Voters. If you have questions tonight, you're welcome to write down a question and hand it over to one of the wonderful women who are wearing blue League of Women Voters t-shirts. Without further ado, I'm pleased to invite our moderator, Andy Koen, up to the stage, and he's going to talk about the rules and kick off our program for tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you so much. And how about a round of applause for Citizens Project and the League of Women Voters? I said this in our 5 o'clock news report, but really they did do a lot of the heavy lifting in reaching out to all of the candidates to try and make them accessible to you, the voters in our community, and we're very grateful for their organizational work. And with that, I do want to make a point of mentioning that they did reach out to all of the candidates who are on some of our local races here, who we're going to be seeing tonight are the ones who responded to us, and that includes our Congressman Doug Lamborn, who notified the Citizens Project at the last moment that he would not be able to attend this evening. So we are going to, instead, I'm going to ask Dr. Stephanie Rose Spalding some questions, and we will hear from her first this evening. But before we get to that, I want to explain the format and go over a couple of the rules. These rules were agreed to by all of the parties before attending tonight. Candidates are going to be seated in the order that they appear on the ballot. However, we have randomly selected the order of who's going to answer questions first. A timekeeper is seated right here in the front row, and they are going to show you signs to give you an alert at 30 seconds, at 10 seconds, and then a stop sign as well to let you know that time has expired. Most of the questions, I think, are going to be allowed for about a 1-minute answer, but we are also going to allow each of our candidates a brief moment to introduce themselves and offer some opening statements as well as closing statements as well. A couple of rules that we would like to ask the audience. Please refrain from loud clapping and disrespectful displays. We really want to give appropriate time to all of the candidates who made an effort to be here. Also, no signs from the audience this evening. And during the Q&A session, we want you to write questions. We want you to ask questions. I will be reading them to them. You might have seen the little notes on your seats that the League of Women Voters had passed around. So write your questions on there, pass those to the end. We've got ladies here in the blue shirts who can collect those, and then they will be brought up here for our candidates to answer. We've also got a Twitter hashtag if somebody would rather like to tweet, although I've heard that the Wi-Fi coverage is not so good in here. So just a fair warning if you're trying to do that digitally. But that hashtag is the hashtag CP Forum, all lowercase letters there on Twitter. And if you just tweet whatever question you might have on your own Twitter account, include that hashtag, and we will try and include those questions as well. With that, let's go ahead and begin with our first candidate, Dr. Stephanie Rose Spalding. She is a pastor and a professor. She is the pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church and also a professor and the chair of Women's and Ethnic Studies at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, the Democratic challenger in this 5th Congressional District race. Dr. Spalding, go ahead and begin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are we? I just want to thank everyone who's in the room as well as watching live streaming, and will watch the replay. I am Stephanie Rose Spalding, running for U.S. House of Representatives, and I know that it may look like I'm the only one running right now, but that's just where we are. And I understand what it means right now for you to take the time to engage the candidates that you are indeed employing as citizens of the 5th Congressional District. For me, throughout this last year and a half, I have come to learn through conversation and relationship building some of the things that are near and dear to all of us, regardless of political affiliation. Many of us are suffering in the 5th Congressional District, whether it's the housing crisis that we face because we have a shortage of homes that are affordable and not being built fast enough, or whether it's the decision whether you are going to buy medicine or pay your mortgage. How we are educating our children, not just here in Colorado Springs, but in Chaffee County, in Fremont County, what is happening in Park County to the point that they have more veterinarians than doctors. And only can we have these conversations when we are in the room together. So I am grateful for Citizens Project hosting tonight, as well as all of the other co-sponsors. But I am more grateful for each and every one of you who are invested in our democracy, who understand the impact of what is happening in our communities right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, let's go ahead and begin with the questions. I'm going to go ahead and start here. Ben Koen, Jerry Greenfield, they are the founders of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream, and they are supporting 7 Democratic candidates for Congress in this congressional midterm. You're one of those 7 candidates. And I read about this in Politico. They describe the races as ranging from political battlegrounds to long shots. How would you characterize your campaign against Mr. Lamborn? As a long shot or a tight race?
I would characterize this as a race of the people, that we have been building a grassroots community dedicated to flipping the 5th over the last year and a half. And there have been people, again, from Democrat to Republican to unaffiliated voters who are really in a place of apathy regarding the current representation or lack thereof. And so for me, I don't perceive it as either one. I see this as a grassroots movement that people are building together, that communities are saying, this is what I want to bequeath to my children's children. And that is what we are invested in right now.
Okay. You've said that you were inspired to run for Congress after attending the Women's March in Washington, D.C. in January of 2017. Could you tell us what was it about that moment that motivated you to run for public office?
It was the spirit and the energy of people willing to come together and declare, this is who we are and who we know ourselves to be. It does not matter what the narrative has been, this is who we are. And so, yes, I was in Washington, D.C., but I will tell you, when I got back to that hotel room and I watched on many of the news returns what was happening here in Colorado, I was really homesick for a moment because I wanted to be here in El Paso County. 7,000 people gathered here in Colorado Springs, and for me, again, it was just electric. People who had never stepped into the political arena before in their lives said, I have to do something to make sure that the kind of representation before me is what I desire it to be.
Well, that demonstration occurred the day after the inauguration of President Donald Trump. Many of the protesters were saying, not my president. Well, there's some discussion about whether or not, if Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, if impeachment could be on the table. You want to share your thoughts? Would you vote for impeachment against President Trump?
If the evidence articulates impeachment, then I would have to do what the will of the people ask for, and that is to make sure that we follow the law. And so again, if the evidence is presented for impeachment, then we will follow the process and we will follow the law.
I want to get to a couple of questions here that we have received from our audience members, and this one reads, what will you do to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid from Republicans that talk about cutting these vital programs?
So I don't think that it's just one party. I think that we have to make sure that we are making fiscal decisions that are responsible long into the future. And for me, part of it is looking at the tax plan that just passed in 2017 and seeing how it has become a burden and not a blessing for many people in our communities. I was reminded by someone that people at $75,000 a year are doing really well. Well, most of the people that I live with, most of the people that I know are not making $75,000 a year. Forbes just articulated that Colorado Springs has one of the fastest growing cost of living rates. And so people are suffering. And so I will make fiscal decisions that honor the work people have done and protect the safety nets that they have already invested into.
All right. The United Nations recently reported that we have 12 years to make big changes and alter the course of climate change. What do you think about this representation?
I think that if we are going to be living on this planet, then we have to do something now. When I am in the Arkansas River Valley, or whether I'm in Fountain, Security Wyfield, or even here in Teller County, Chaffee County, all over the 5th Congressional District, we have environmental problems. Whether it's our watersheds, it is our fire seasons that are no longer fire seasons, they are fire years. We have to do something different. And I remind people that it is not the planet that will not be here, it is us. This planet might look like Mars or Venus, but human life will not be able to subsist. We cannot make more water, as brilliant as we are. So we have to do something now.
All right. One final question before we wrap up. Since our country is so divided by our political parties, what are you going to do to reunite us?
I think it begins first with listening to one another. I think the 2016 election cycle, which motivated so many of us to move into action, was because we were not heard, and people across the country felt that their issues and their pain points had been ignored. When I think about how we move forward in regard to environmental safety, environmental protection, we cannot do that at the behest of people who live in Cripple Creek. We have to do that, bringing all of us along. So it begins with listening to where people are, honoring what is their pain as a reality, and then figuring out what are the responsible solutions that we can do. I'm grateful I have had practice as a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert doing this kind of work in very contentious conversations already.
All right. And we have 1 minute for closing remarks now.
Again, I remind us that this seat belongs to no one but the people of the 5th Congressional District. And so when we think about what we are moving towards on November 6th, remember that the power is in your hands to have someone who is working for you. If you have not seen your representative, they are not representing you. If you cannot get a response, they are not representing you. And so make the decision about who you want, who will answer your call, respond to your email, show up in person, regardless of the regardless of the miles, regardless of the hours not slept. You are the employer, and I desire to be your employee. Thank you.
Dr. Spalding, thank you for being here this evening. We're going to take a brief moment now to transition to one of our first discussions, one of our House districts. We're going to welcome the candidates from House District 17 to the stage. So please welcome Mr. Tony Exum and Ms. Kit Rupe. Come on up. This is going to be really interesting because if you're familiar with the district, then you know this, but if you're not, both of these candidates have actually held this district seat at one time or another. Kit Rupe was elected in 2014. Tony Exum was elected in 2016. I gave you an upgrade there, a pay grade. In 2016 to your second term for this district. And so we want to thank you both for being here this evening. And again, as we said, the order in which you were seated, this was organized by where you're going to appear on the ballot, but I may ask you questions out of turn. That's just the way it is. Since you've both been in the legislature, I would like to start things off by talking about an issue that's on the minds of a lot of folks in this community, transportation. And I'm sure, as you know, CDOT, their funding primarily comes through our gas taxes and our vehicle registration fees. There's not a lot of general fund money that gets allocated into fixing our roads and highways. And it seems to me that the voters have gotten a little bit tired of waiting for the lawmakers to do something about it, because there are two ballot initiatives that have different ideas of how to better fund roads. And so, Kit, we're going to start with you. What are your thoughts about how we can better fund our roads here in the state of Colorado?
Well, thank you, Andy, and thank you, everybody who is here today. I really appreciate you taking the time on a gloomy night to join us and talk about these different important issues that face all of us, not just the folks that are in the audience. We have two initiatives that are on the ballot, 110 and 109, if I'm correct. And I have to be quite frank, I support 109, and it's because we already have done something that's kind of trailblazing. We, as among the El Paso County and Colorado Springs, took the time to say, let's figure out what the best solution is for our roads and how we can manage that. And so as a result, we actually are investing a great deal of funds into what we have for our roadways. And then now we're talking about 110. When you compare 110, we won't have as much investment into our roadways, and we'll be paying a little bit more. I'm actually enamored by both of these. Both of them, I think, charge the legislature to get off their doofus and do something. And I think that that's right. But we manage things from a local level perspective through our councils of government, and it bubbles up to the Transportation Commission. I think the legislature should set aside a percentage of the budget that is dedicated to our roads and transportation, not just for El Paso County, but for all of Colorado Springs. So thank you, Andy. That's the best answer I have.
Thank you very much. I owe you both an apology. I was so eager to start asking you questions that I forgot to give you the moment to give your opening remarks. But let's give Tony a chance to answer the question, then we'll go through to the opening remarks, and that might give some of the folks in the audience a chance to write questions to you. So, Tony, what do you think about how are we going to better fund our roads here in Colorado?
Well, thank you, Andy, and thanks again for everybody being here. I think that a couple things have happened in the last legislative session. Many of you might not know, but we voted to put in $495 million toward transportation. That's the biggest input in transportation that the General Assembly has done in a number of years. And I think it's going to take not just state input, but it's going to take federal dollars, it's going to take local dollars. And I think that's what happened to get the ball rolling to fix the gap, to widen the gap between Monument and Castle Rock. Federal dollars are coming in. We've committed state dollars not only this year, but in years to come. And the local community has got involved in it. And I think that's what it's going to take in order to get the roads fixed. As far as 109, I think that it sets a dangerous precedent in taking money away from other very important parts of the budget, which is K-12 education, Medicaid, and health care, human services, corrections, and even higher education. With our state budget in Colorado, we're required by the Constitution to balance the budget. We can't do like the federal government and print more money. We have to balance what we have. And I know there's a lot of folks pulling a lot of different areas. Transportation is very important, and I think we did get off our duff and do something this last session.
All right. Well, as I said, I neglected to give you your opening time for opening remarks. So, Tony, why don't we begin with you? If you've got a minute and a half that you've got prepared, go ahead and talk to the audience.
All right. Thanks again, Andy. My first time running in this race was 2012, and before that, I didn't have any any background in politics. I'm a longtime resident of Colorado Springs. I'm one of 11 children. I grew up in this area, graduated from Palmer High School, and I had the opportunity to serve you as a firefighter for almost 36 years. And I was recruited into this position. I'm glad I was, because I didn't really want to do it. I didn't have a background, and Representative Pete Lee told me that, hey, there's people that trust you because of your background as a firefighter, your long residency here. And so I finally had a change of heart and was able to win the race in 2012 by a large margin. And I lost to Kit in 2014 by 289 votes, and then came back and won in 2016. So we're out knocking on doors, my team and I, and since 2012, 2014, 2016, and even this year, the message that we're hearing from the residents is the same. They're concerned about education, concerned about health care, concerned about jobs and the economy. So we're listening to them and putting things forth in the legislation that I'm running, and also legislation that I'm supporting to help the community. And I would be honored to continue to serve in this House district another 2 years.
All right, thank you so much. And Kit.
So thank you all. I appreciate all that you've done to come here again. Like I said, I served in the legislature from 15 to 16. And, you know, since then, people have asked me, so what have you done since you haven't served in the legislature? And I've been on the board of directors of the Rocky Mountain Healthcare Services, which is PACE and Brain Care. I started a business, joined the Women's Chamber as well as the Hispanic Chamber. And I also helped a charter school who was under an out-of-state management company divest themselves of that management company and become self-managed. You know, education is vital. It's our investment in our children and our community's future. Whether a child goes to college or pursues a vocational career, we should do all we can to make these choices possible. And collaborating with industry and education in the community, we started to give our children those opportunities, and I pledge to do that again. I received the Colorado Senior Lobby's Serving Our Seniors Award for legislation and protecting our seniors, keeping seniors at home and with family, providing all-inclusive care and affordable housing. Today I'm advocating for some senior, abuse and neglect kind of legislation, as well as a hospital in our community. As a veteran, it's very close to my heart. The United Veterans Committee of Colorado has endorsed me in this race, and that's because of my interest in veterans issues. I will say that I'm advocating for a Veterans Community Service Center in our community. Thank you.
All right, Kit, thank you so much. We'll return now to some of our questions, and we just received a question from Tim here in the audience, and it had to do with our previous question, transportation. And he wants to know, can we stop CDOT from simply listening and then doing as they please? And does this involve firing our transportation director, Rocky Scott? So, Kit, why don't you take that one?
Wonderful. Some of you know that Rocky Scott was actually part of our economic development in our community, and so he has an interest in working with us, so I was kind of surprised. But I would say CDOT does need to listen to the people a lot more than it has historically. I understand, having worked with CDOT, some of the older facilities, but they put $41 million into a new building when we were struggling with an infrastructure crisis. And I would like to see us have a better working relationship between the governor and the director of CDOT, as well as our transportation commissioners. There's no question. I'd like to see them come out into our communities and work a little closer with us on these issues. Again, I agree with you, Representative Exum. We did do quite a bit in 16 and 17 and 18 in funding transportation, but prior to that, there was no money coming to transportation, and so we have this huge backfill that we have to fill. So yes, solving the problem with the transportation commissioner is going to be critical. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Tony, let's go ahead and continue with Tim's question here. He's frustrated. It feels like CDOT does a lot of listening, but then ends up funding things however they please. And, should we fire Rocky Scott? So kind of two questions there in one from our audience.
Well, first of all, I think I'll repeat what I said earlier. It's going to take a collaborative effort, not only from the federal government, but from CDOT, the state, the local folks, in order to fix our transportation problem. And I think that CDOT needs to be at the table and and have a listening ear to what the people are asking for. I understand they have some policies and things that they have to follow, but transportation has been something that's been a burden for Colorado Springs and the surrounding communities for a long time, because we're growing so fast, and we have to do something. When there's more traffic on the roads, we're going to have to do something to fix the roads. And again, it's going to take a collaborative effort, including CDOT.
Okay. Well, let's transition to education now. As you both know, General Assembly in this last session had increased per pupil funding for our schools, but the teachers are telling us that that may not be enough. They put a question on the ballot asking for a new income tax to raise even more money for schools. And if I understand that ballot question correctly, it also maybe makes some adjustments to mill levies, putting a basement in place. And so, Tony, why don't you tell us your thoughts? Are we funding schools adequately here in the state of Colorado? 1 minute to answer there.
Well, we're doing better. We still have a long way to go. This last session, we put more money into education than we've done in the last decade. So I think we're hearing from the people. We do need to increase teacher salaries and reduce classroom size and all the things that the teachers need. Teachers are very vital to our community. I love teachers. They saved my life when I was growing up and not paying attention. So teachers are very, very, very important. And I think the ballot initiative is really up to the voters and not the input from state legislators. We have our part to do in balancing the budget, and we've been listening. That's why we were able to prioritize more money this last session than we've done in the last decade. But it's really up to the voters to decide if they want a tax increase because of Tabor laws. And so we leave that in the hands of the voters to decide on this ballot initiative.
Okay. Well, Kit, your thoughts about this. Are we funding education adequately?
I think that we aren't necessarily doing a very good job, and I agree with Representative Exum. Actually, I was one of the few folks that voted for the budget when we actually put more money into transportation and into the education obligations that we had. That was in 2016. I think it's very important for us to fund our educational system, and I maintain that sometimes at the legislative level, we put requirements on our school districts without giving them the resources and the funding that they need in order to implement those requirements. And that comes down and it increases the size of administration, and it directly impacts teacher pay and the school and the classrooms. I would maintain that we need to think very thoughtfully about the types of initiatives and bills that we pass that have that kind of direct impact on our school districts, so that our school districts can take the tax dollars we pay locally and put them into the classroom and into teacher pay. As for the initiative, I agree, this is a voter decision, and I ask you to be very thoughtful about that process and learn as much as you can. So thank you.
All right, well, thanks so much. And we do have an audience question about education. And Kit, we want to start with you on this one, but it's asking about, do you support parent choice in education, charters, and vouchers? Now, obviously, we do have school choice here in the state of Colorado, but I don't believe we have a voucher system for private schools. But your thoughts, do you think that's something that the legislature needs to look at?
Thank you, Andy. Yes, it's very interesting that we don't have vouchers. We have an awful lot of choice. A student that's in Monument that might want to go to a charter school in another part of the community, if they have availability, can go to that charter school as long as the school accepts them. So there are a lot of options, and private schools also are a lot of our options. As for vouchers, I really am critical of them. We do not have a viable process for how we would manage those charters, those vouchers, and I just would love to have that conversation and see if it's viable. But we had such a ruckus over vouchers a few years ago, and we couldn't find a common ground. And I think we need to bring people together, collaborate, and try to figure out what's the right solution if we were to use vouchers. This time it's public dollars to go to public schools. Charter schools are public schools, and so many other things are paid for by private public dollars. I think that's where we really need to focus our efforts at this time.
Okay. Well, Tony, your thoughts about school choice and about voucher systems here in the state of Colorado?
Thank you, Andy. I think parents and students should have the choice on where they go to school, and whether their kids are educated in the public schools, private schools, or charter schools. That's up to the parent to make that choice. But we shouldn't take away public dollars to fund voucher program or to fund private schools. That's not the way to go, and that would have a devastating impact on the people that I represent in House District 17. And we need to have a better conversation, or more conversation about how vouchers would work and not taking money away from public education.
All right. Thank you very much. Here's a question for Kit Rupay. It says, at a charter school, do you pay a living wage similar to what the public schools do, and do you accept disabled children? So some questions about your stance on charters here.
Very good. So yes, charter schools are publicly funded. It usually either goes from the state, where they're chartered at the state level, or they're chartered through a local school district, and they receive that funding from them. And they do need to pay comparable pay as what the school districts do. In fact, when I was helping this one charter school, we were looking at what the comparable pay would be for the School District 11 folks, because they're a School District 11 school. We even looked at what their benefits would be. Is it comparable to what other teachers were actually going to be making? Now, when it comes to disabled children, I do know that there are some issues that surround the access of and availability to charter schools and disabled children, or physically disabled, that is, or any other kind of disability, I propose. So I think that we should look at how we might help those charter schools come around to where they can accept disabled children in their classrooms. They're a font of great innovation, and I'd like to support them.
Okay. Tony, do you have a response to some of the differences the questioner seems to be asking here about the position of charter schools compared to relative to public schools as far as paying teachers goes and accepting of disabled students? Your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I think teachers should be paid a comparable wage for the work that they're doing. We really need to increase teacher pay, whether they're in public schools or charter schools. And also access to our ADA folks, that is vital. We're in a society now where we don't want to separate those. Years ago, we used to separate the ADA children into other rooms, other classrooms, and I'm glad that we brought them together to work alongside the other children in school, because everyone should be valued and not put aside. So we really need to do more in that arena.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Well, and I do want to make a reminder about the hashtag. If you guys do want to tweet in your questions, I'm trying to keep an eye on it on my phone up here. I don't know if they're coming in so quick. But that hashtag is CP Forum, all one word, CP Forum. And we've reached a moment now where it's time for us to wrap up. So, Kit, why don't you give us your closing remarks for 1 minute, and then we'll move on to Tony.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you again, everybody, for being here this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time and investing your energy into elections. I think they're very vital. We are here to represent the community and the people that are in House District 17 in this instance. And it doesn't fall along party lines. This is about representing people in their real issues. Walking door to door, I hear about jobs in the economy, the ability to get an education that really helps our students both help their families and families who want to send their kids to college be able to afford a college education. A lot of folks want to be able to work in our community. So I'd advocate for a hospital down in Southeast Colorado Springs. I'd advocate for the Veterans Community Service Center to be in our community. I would advocate for a variety of different educational opportunities for our students and our families. This is an investment in our community. As a legislator, maybe we control some of the budget that comes down, but I would say we are here to represent our community and give as much back to the community as you have given to us. Thank you.
Going to have to rough you up there. Sorry about that, Kit. All right. And Tony, you've got 60 seconds for closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Thanks again to KOAA and all you friendly folks here. I like to see those smiles when we're speaking. Sometimes it gets a little nervous up here. When I'm knocking on doors, I'm hearing some of the same things about jobs and the economy and education. And now healthcare has really entered into, and affordable housing has entered into the conversation. And I think for House District 17, I'm committed to continue to fight for and be a voice for House District 17 in those areas. Sometimes city decisions and county decisions regarding House District 17 were an afterthought. We want to be at the table at the forethought in those planning. We'd like to have more investments in the House District 17, and I'm going to do my best to continue to represent House District 17 if the voters say so. And I've enjoyed it so far. I'm still learning. It's a lot to learn in the legislative business, but I'm glad to be there, and I'm humbled to, and would be grateful for your vote in 2018. And thanks again for coming.
We want to thank you both for your participation tonight. All right, we're going to make a short transition here, and we want to invite to the stage some of the candidates who they responded, but perhaps their opponent did not respond. So we're going to give each of them 2 minutes to kind of tell you a little bit about themselves and their district and their race and why they want to have your vote. So we're going to welcome to the stage the 3 Senate District candidates that we have in the audience this evening. From Senate District 2, we're going to have Beth Hart. From Senate District 9, Gil Armendariz. And from Senate District 11, Mr. Pete Lee. So come on up to the stage, you guys. And we're going to have to work out the seating order here. Let's see who we got. Beth is on this end, Pete's on that end. Gil, you're right in the middle. So you picked the right chair. Come on up. All right, like we said, we've got 2 minutes for you guys to introduce yourselves and tell the audience what you would like to about your campaign. So Beth, we're going to begin with you. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
You might want to
great.
pull it a little closer there. There you go.
I'm Beth Hart. I live down in Florence, Colorado, in Fremont County. I'm excited about our district. It's fantastic. It's huge. It's large. It's beautiful. I'm worried about our water, our environment. I'm also worried about the same thing that Stephanie did, that we have some issues as far as our health care, having doctors available. These are the things that I hear when I go and knock on doors. Housing, good jobs, good education. There's a lot to do in our state. We have a lot of opportunity. And I sure love District 2, and I would love to serve you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ben. Gil, why don't you go next?
Hello, everyone. My name's Gil Armendariz. I'm running for Colorado Senate District 9. That's up in the northern part of El Paso County. The reason I decided to run is the same reason my opponent isn't here. I didn't feel that there was a representation or a connection to the citizens in that part of the county, and I felt it was important to stand up and make a difference. What I'm seeing, though, is that I've been to various houses across the county, and like a residence that they had a home that they've been in 30 years up underneath Hartmann Mountain, and they were now running out of water. I've run into the same instance with a couple that have been on a home for 25 years, and they're running out of water. I feel like we lack a comprehensive plan to deal with the expansion that we see here in Colorado Springs. I mean, I saw it driving in on I-25. It was bumper-to-bumper traffic, and I know everybody sees that. What I'd like to do moving into the Senate is address some of these issues, address the question of having public health care that's affordable. We see that in other countries, and I keep thinking, why can't Colorado do the same thing? Having the strongest economy of all 50 states, we should have the resources to get that done. And I see a lot of things that can actually move forward. It's just the way we address them and work together to get these things done. I'd appreciate your support in helping me get to the Senate and getting those things accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you again. And Pete, you're our final candidate for state Senate seat. Why don't you go ahead and take your 2 minutes now.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Citizens Project, for putting on this forum tonight, and thank you, citizens of this community, for coming out to listen to us. I'm running for office to continue doing the bipartisan collaborative work that I've been doing for the last 8 years as a state representative in House District 18. During that period of time, I've worked across the aisle and successfully sponsored over 90 bills over that 8-year period that have made significant changes in the way we do criminal justice, the way we do juvenile justice, the way education is conducted. I've sponsored bills to deal with the energy challenges of Colorado and to move us to a more renewable, clean energy economy. I've sponsored a dozen bills to get Colorado's economy moving. It is moving now. Back when I began my legislative career, I sponsored a series of bills to try to develop apprentice and training programs so that people coming out of school could get good jobs in the community, particularly in some of these high-tech areas. So apprentice jobs have been a priority. I've also worked with veteran legislation in order to provide opportunities for veterans who are leaving the military service to come into the community and continue their service in the local community. I want to continue doing this work for the next 4 years, and I would very much appreciate the support of the voters in this district so we can keep moving Colorado forward. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for participating this evening. We've got a number of House District candidates that we would like to welcome to the stage next. So let's do 2 at a time. From House District 15, Brenda Kraus, and from House District 16, Andrew Smith. Come on up. And I think, Brenda, we're going to have you on this seat here closest to me. Andrew, you'll be in the middle chair there. So, all right. And again, I won't be asking you questions. Just 2 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you'd like to represent the people of your district. So are you guys ready? Yep. Then let's begin. Brenda, you go first.
Okay, only 2 minutes, huh?
Only 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I better read fast. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. On March 28th, I stepped up to run for House District 15. I'm a first-time candidate. I never had... Are we good?
Yep.
Is that better? Okay, all right. So I stepped up to run for House District 15. There has not been a Democrat in that district for over 50 years, so I have my work cut out for me for sure. I wanted to be part of the solutions to the challenges we face today. I am motivated to run for several reasons, for a lot of the reasons that's already been mentioned, but I also felt we were facing such unease in our world and in our country these days. There's so much division, and I want to be a part of the solutions because I think we have more in common than we do that are different. So as everyone has already mentioned, we're worried about schools and roads. We're worried about, health care, mental health issues, and I am a former mental health clinician, so that's really important to me. In the education arena, that is really close to my heart. We have shortfall of funds, of course, it's already been mentioned. Our teachers are just not getting paid well. In School District 49, where I am, teachers start out at $35,000, and with I just don't feel that's commensurate with their education, with the responsibilities that are laid on them. So I would really like to see more funding for schools. And as I've walked this district, knocked on thousands of doors, trust me, I see the bad road situation in House District 49. So, of course, I would like to see an improvement in that area too. There's so many more things we can talk about, but I had 2 minutes. So I am going to give the floor over to my colleague.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Andrew, thank you for being here. Go ahead.
Of course. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I know the weather's not very great, so thank you for coming out and talking to us, some of the amazing candidates that are here. We only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to fire a couple of facts at you guys as quickly as I can. I moved here in 2009. I was a transplant. I was stationed at Fort Carson. I was a U.S. Army combat engineer, something I'm very proud of. Decided to get out after 4 years in 2012. I knew I wanted to work in public service, but I didn't really know what that was going to look like. So I bounced around to a couple of different organizations. Some of you may have heard of Represent Us. I worked closely with them. I worked with another organization called End Rape on Campus, who their main goal is to combat sexual assault that goes on campuses, something I'm very passionate about. And thank you. And in 2017, I worked for the incredible Senator Rhonda Fields. If you know who she is, she's absolutely just an amazing legislator. And seeing how she connected with her constituents, how she was available, she made time twice a month to sit down and be available for anyone that needed to talk to her. And seeing how we're not getting that in House District 16 played a big part of why I decided to run. In that time, I've become an educator, so I'm very, very passionate about education. I had a very unique childhood where I relied heavily on my educators to kind of shape who I am now. And my goal is to give back to my community, and that's one way that I can do that. Another way is, of course, coming out and trying to represent everyone in the best way that I know how. When I look at my current incumbent competitor, I guess you will, if he shows up ever, but you look around and he's just not available. He's not meeting with constituents. He doesn't like his ideas to be challenged. I'm here to tell all of you, as sure as I'm sitting here, I promise you, if we disagree on something, you can always come talk to me and we'll have a very real conversation. Tell me that I'm wrong and let's fix things together. I'm tired of the status quo. I'm tired of people thinking that the way things are now is how things have to be. Obviously, I got 15 seconds left. So major issues of education, transportation, healthcare. You can check all of my stances out on those at smith4colorado.com. And I look forward to your support for House District 16.
All right. You got it all in. Andrew and Brenda, thank you so much for participating with us this evening. We have 2 more candidates we're going to welcome up from the races for House District 19 and House District 20. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's last name, but could we please welcome to the stage Asia Zanders and Kent Jarning. Thank you both for being here this evening. And again, I won't be asking you questions, but the floor is yours for 2 minutes. Asia, we're going to let you speak first.
Alrighty, thank you, Andy. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Asia Zanders, and I'm running for House District 19. So my district begins at County Line Road, and it's really 2/3 of El Paso County. So Calhan, Charnock, Rush, Monument, all of that. So I am a mother of 3. Mother of 3. I'm sorry, a wife, and an Army veteran. I am running for House District 19 because there is a need for cohesion, transparency, and accountability within our state legislature. Cohesion because we must work together to represent the people, and we must work together to pass policies. Transparency as we must be sure to provide accurate information, even if it goes against party lines, and accountability so we can be responsible for every action we take. I believe that sticking to these ideals and remembering that government is to maintain the living standard, among others, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we cannot go wrong. So my main focuses are livable wages, education, cleaner environment, improvement to rural areas like roads and water issues and all of that. So right now I am actually currently working on my degree in political philosophy, so hopefully that leads me in the right direction. So thank you all. Asia Zanders.
Thank you, Asia. Kent, go ahead.
Thank you, Andy. My name is Kent Jarnig. I'm a candidate for House District 20. That is west of I-25 with exclusion of Manitou Springs and the city of Monument. Kind of looks like an E. I'm a husband, father, grandfather. I have lived in El Paso County for over 7 years and Colorado for over 25. I was a combat medic in Vietnam. I have a BS degree in with senior management for 2 manufacturing companies, and I've been an owner of 2 small businesses. I am a fiscal conservative and a political moderate, but I believe in affordable health care for all Coloradans. And I have 2 specific cost-neutral ideas to make that happen. Both of these are on my website. I support our teachers and Amendment 73, which only affects people earning more than $150,000 a year. I'm against the new toll lane on I-25 between Monument and Castle Rock. In 2017, El Paso County voted to give CDOT $25 million, and now they want to charge us again. This is wrong, and it needs to be changed. We must continue to fund Colorado County Veterans Services Office, especially the one here in Colorado Springs. The support is in place, staffed by veterans whose only goal is getting the benefits they earned and deserve. I have just one request: vote. Republican, Democrat, Independent, vote. It is your right. Thank you.
Hard to disagree with that message. Kent and Asia, thank you so much for participating this evening. I want to welcome to the stage our 2 next candidates. They are both from House District 21, and I feel like I owe you a little bit of an explanation. So I'm going to do a little inside baseball and maybe, show you what went on behind the curtains. But as it turned out, we didn't know if both of the candidates were going to be here this evening. Otherwise, we might have made other accommodations, but the schedule had already been set when we heard they were both going to be here. So please welcome to the stage Lois Landgraf and Liz Rosenbaum. So again, I won't be asking questions, but the floor is yours for 2 minutes each. And we are going to begin with you, Lois.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having us, both of us. It's been an honor serving the people of House District 21. I'm thinking about Kit. I serve as ranking member of the Public Health and Human Services Committee. I am on the Health, Insurance, and Environment Committee, the Health Benefit Exchange, and thanks to Pete Lee, the Improving Outcomes for Youth Task Force. I want to tell you about a few of the more than 60 bills that I've sponsored during my time in office. One bill protects children who were conceived as a result of sexual assault from the parent who committed the assault. Prior to this bill, that person would have had parental visitation rights if they were in prison. Another enforced laws against designer drugs such as spice. Under my leadership, Colorado has gone from a D to a B+ rating opposing human trafficking for sexual servitude. Another bill allows women to receive a multi-month supply of contraceptives, saving you that trip to the pharmacy. 2 of the bills I passed this year include the Veterans Retirement Benefits Tax Exemption, which took 3 years to get to the governor's desk for signature, and the bill that allows the first CBD, non-THC, FDA-approved prescription drug to be offered in pharmacies. That's a derivative of marijuana. I have been honored with dozens of awards from organizations as diverse as the Independent Bankers of Colorado, the United Veterans Committee, the National Association of Social Workers, and the Colorado Union of Taxpayers. I have been called the most effective legislator at the Capitol by the Colorado Statesman. Next session, I will continue my work with the Department of Public Health to ensure that the quality of water. I will respect your time.
Well, thank you so much, Lois.
Thank you. I do have my bills out on my desk.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Liz Rosenbaum, and I'm running to represent all of us in House District 21. I am I've lived here for about 15 years. The Army dropped us off here. My husband's a disabled veteran. We own a few businesses together since we've been here, and I've been a high school history teacher at Whitefield High School. And the day after I lost my county commissioner election, my husband turned to me and said, "Look at all the people who voted for you. What are you going to do?" So I started the Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. Together with my community, we have worked diligently to come up with solutions, not only locally, but at the national level, to see what we have learned and how it can impact other communities. I've been actively engaged in all of this. We were able to host the EPA Summit. We do not have laws to enforce polluters to pay for contamination, and I will make that happen. I look forward to representing you. My son is in the Navy. My dad was in the Air Force in Vietnam. I come from a proud military family. I am listening to you. Your words are important, and I appreciate your support, and I look forward to representing you after November 6th. Thank you so much, and please vote.
Lois and Liz, thank you so much for both coming this evening and participating. All right, we're going to make another transition now, and we're going to get a little bit more local. We're going to introduce a couple of candidates we have for County Commissioner District 1 with us this evening. Coming to the stage now is candidates Frank Delala and Holly Williams. As you may know, this seat is currently held by Darrell Glenn. He's term limited, so we're going to have a fresh face on our Board of County Commissioners. We're very happy to have you both here with us this evening. And I will not forget to let you give your opening remarks this time before jumping into the questions. And Frank, we've got you down to go ahead and give the introduction first.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And thanks for caring enough to come out tonight to this event. My name is Frank Delala, and I am your candidate for County Commissioner District 1. The person you will elect for the next 4 years will work for you, and you will be paying them $116,000 a year. When you are deciding who to vote for, you should ask each candidate, why should I hire you? I want you to compare my history of leadership, managerial experience, and financial management to that of my opponent. I am the most qualified to represent your interests, financially, managerially, and ethically. I've worked for almost 40 years serving our military and intelligence communities, first with the U.S. government, then later with Lockheed Martin and L3 Communications, the number 1 and number 6 defense contractors in the U.S. The last 25 years of that time, I was in increasingly responsible leadership positions. As a vice president and general manager at L3, I managed an organization of more than 5,000 employees and led a business that had revenues of more than $400 million per year. I have the experience to lead our county employees. I have the experience to manage significant financial resources and fight for our share of those resources. And I have never had any ethical questions about my financial management or leadership during my professional career. You want smart, well-planned, sustainable growth, and as your commissioner, I will listen to your concerns first, not developers and not party. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, thank you, Frank. And Holly, I'm going to interrupt just for a minute and remind everyone that we will be taking your questions for the candidates as well. So if you haven't had a chance to write them out, go ahead and ask for one of those sheets. But Holly, let's give your opening remarks.
Thank you to Channel 5, Citizens Project, and the League of Women Voters for supporting this debate. And thank you, Andy, and Channel 5 for your time as well. My name is Holly Williams. I have lived in El Paso County since 1992. I've been working with citizens and voters since the late 90s. I served as a public trustee of El Paso County for 8 years, a time when I worked under the Board of County Commissioner leadership and under their budgetary authority. Under my leadership, the county staff and I were able to reduce the operating costs of our office from $26 to $10 per transaction. I was also able to quadruple the net revenue returned to the county to more than $1.2 million. I was proud to be elected by my peers to serve as president of our statewide association. I strongly believe in and have lived a life of public service and dedication to my community. I believe that I can make a difference by serving you. I believe that local issues matter, and if elected, I plan to be accessible to the citizens of El Paso County and to keep our communication lines open, answering questions from everybody. Our county government is one of the most fiscally conservative governments in the state, with each citizen paying only $243 per person to run our government. I want to continue this tradition by keeping our taxes low, funding transportation and public safety, and protecting and maintaining our quality of life. Thank you for your time.
All right. Well, let's get into discussion, and Holly, we'll go ahead and begin with you, but I want to talk with you a little bit about, get your thoughts on marijuana. Our sheriff has been on television quite a bit with a lot of black market marijuana raids, and this is taking up a lot of his deputies' time. In fact, I believe the Board of County Commissioners is asking to renew the 1A sales tax, public safety sales tax, a year early because there's a fear if that money does not get renewed, the sheriff would have significantly less funds to try and combat some of the cartels that are here in town. So can you share with us your thoughts about what county government can do to really combat what we're noticing in especially rural parts of the county?
Yes, I do support the renewal of the 1A public safety sales tax. I believe that our sheriff is working very hard. One of our problems with the illegal marijuana grows is that they take a lot of water. And water is a really big deal out in the rural areas of the county. The other thing as well is that they essentially, I believe, kind of ruin the house they're in. So it makes it hard for someone to sell it. I support going out and, as much as the sheriff can, eliminating these illegal marijuana grows and the legislature's attempts to try and regulate the industry more. I would continue to support those efforts, and that's in hope that we can get it under control. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And Frank, again, this is a 1 minute time limit on these questions, but I'm going to try to let you finish your thought instead of interrupting you right at the end here. But Frank, your thoughts about the black market marijuana grows. We're seeing so many of them in the county, and the sheriff says it's taken up a lot of his time. Your thoughts?
So the citizens of the state made a decision several years ago that marijuana was recreational marijuana was something that we wanted to have, and we should respect that decision. But unfortunately, a side effect or an unintended consequence of that has been the proliferation of the black market, the illicit grows, and as was mentioned, primarily out to the east. And so that has to be controlled. That has to be taken care of. I agree with Holly that that I would also support the early extension of the 1A tax to adequately fund the sheriff's department so that they can continue this. The efforts that they're doing to bring the illegal grows under control, and I think we have to do that.
All right. Very good answers. Thank you both. I want to ask you about the cost of living. Our station reported just this week, as a matter of fact, Colorado Springs, the cost of living is growing here at the fastest rate of any community in the country. By way of comparison, they said in 2017, if you could live comfortably on $50,000 as a single adult in a one-bedroom apartment, rent, groceries, etc., you would need to have $67,000 a year of income to have that same standard of living in 2018. So, Frank, let's begin with you. What can we do as a county to help slow down or maybe not have such a high growth rate on the cost of living in our community?
How can we slow it down? I don't know if we can slow it down, but one of my biggest concerns is that a number of the people that our community depends on, our teachers, our nurses in hospitals, healthcare workers, those people aren't making $60,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 a year, many of them. And so they are no longer having a wage that can support this cost of living that we're experiencing here in Colorado Springs. So I would look to see if definitely support the efforts at the state level to increase the funding so that we can increase teacher pay, and also look at addressing pay inequity for other areas that are what I call the working poor, the people who have good, solid jobs but can't afford to live in our community. We want our teachers and our healthcare workers, our nurses, to live here, not have to live miles away from here.
All right. Frank, thank you so much. Holly, your thoughts about the cost of living in our community. What could the Board of County Commissioners do?
Honestly, I just don't think if we were to move here now as opposed to when we moved here in 1992, where we would be able to afford a house. I see the housing prices going way up. I would see a couple of things El Paso County can do. First of all, I believe that we could work with affordable housing. I know that we have an El Paso County Housing Authority, and we could work with them to make sure we have more accessible, affordable housing, especially close to schools that parents are wanting their children to go to for whatever reason, whether it's academics or sports. I would also encourage I do have some relationships with our congressmen and our senators, and I would encourage them, let's make sure that on Social Security increases, that we make sure that we make a cost of living adjustment that people can afford to still live here. We do have a lot of people from Denver moving down because it's such a nice area. But finally also, I do want to make sure that as we consider utility increases in the special districts in the county, to keep them down.
Okay. Holly, thank you. And I want to read a question now from Andrew here in the audience, and this circles back to transportation. We had a little bit of a discussion with our House District candidates about that earlier tonight. But the question is, how would you both balance infrastructure maintenance and public transportation improvements? And Holly, why don't you answer this one first?
So I think on the infrastructure maintenance, I do believe that we are a little behind. I drive home, fortunately, against the traffic every night, but Woodman Road out to Falcon is pretty crowded. One of the ways I would support infrastructure transportation is through the renewal of the Pikes Peak RTA. I think that that has been a very useful mechanism to build roads in our county. I would support efforts to widen I-25 as well. And I really would look forward more to trying to keep the building of our roads local. I was very disappointed with CDOT and the fact that we're paying for a toll road. I would try to keep the building of roads as local as possible. As far as transportation infrastructure, I think that we definitely need to support a bus system that goes up to, in our district, the Pikes Peak Community College Rampart Range campus. They have a fantastic nursing facility, and I'd like to see a bus going that direction.
All right, Holly, thank you very much. Frank, how about infrastructure? How do we maintain a balance of infrastructure and public transportation improvements?
Okay, thank you. So I agree with Holly in extending the PRTA funding. Can't speak tonight. The funding is the funding there is established with a mix for capital versus maintenance funding and money set aside for multimodal and mobility. And the numbers feel about right to me. 55% of the funding for capital, 30% for maintenance, 15% for mobility. So I think that's a nice mix, and I would support that. I am very much in favor of widening 25. I was very unhappy with the way it came about. I think that the current Board of Commissioners pulled a fast one by not being upfront with us and telling us when we voted on the funding last year that a toll lane was included. That was part of the deal at that time. They knew it. They chose not to tell us about it. I won't act that way. I have more integrity than that. I'll share with you all the details.
All right, Frank and Holly, thank you so much. I have another question here, and this kind of circles back to the marijuana issue, but it asks, how is your plan, what are your plans concerning the homeless folks who are coming to our community for pot and then living on our streets? So, Frank, why don't we start with you on that one?
Kick them all. No, I'm teasing. So that, again, that's another unintended consequence of the decision that the citizens made several years ago to legalize marijuana. And it's a problem that we have to deal with. Now, I am not 100% convinced that all of the people that are homeless and the homeless that are inhabiting downtown Colorado Springs are there because of marijuana. There's a lot of other reasons they're probably homeless. A lot of veterans are homeless because they have issues. They have mental health issues, or they have a lot of problems. There are people who are homeless because of just having lost a job or having run into a medical issue that set them back. And we shouldn't just say, well, it's marijuana, the fault is marijuana, let's fix the marijuana. I don't think that's the right answer. I think we need to address the homeless I would definitely support the Homeless Coalition and the work they're doing, and support them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Frank, thanks so much.
Dang, I hate that stop sign.
Well, Holly, your plan to confront the homeless situation that we're seeing here in the community.
So I think we're both learning 60 seconds is not a lot of time. So I do agree. You know, the voters voted in marijuana. We do have a lot of unintended consequences of it, but I would agree with Mr. Dalala that I don't believe all the homeless are there because of marijuana. We need to look into facilities for those who are homeless due to mental health issues. I do especially, thank you. I especially care for, and I really enjoyed the City Council and Mayor Souther's announcement, as well as working with the Continuum of Care to help provide more beds for the homeless, especially as the winter comes in. We do need to take care of them. And those, you know, who are there because of marijuana, we need to help them too, and hopefully get them off the streets and get them into jobs. I don't think it's all because of marijuana, and it's something that we are going to have to deal with.
Okay. One more audience question. I think we have time for one more. We'll again stick with the 1-minute answers in case you need it to explain. But Holly, this is addressed to you. Do you believe in climate change? And if so, how would you help? How would our community help to solve that problem?
I do not believe in climate change, sorry, but I will tell you, I probably lost 90% of any of the voters in the office, or in the room. I do work for El Paso County Environmental. And one thing that we don't fund in Colorado, and I frequently find myself explaining to people from other states, is recycling. And I do believe that we need to take care of our earth. And so I would not, at this point in time, advocate for government funding of recycling. We need to get our roads fixed first. But we do need to encourage our kids to recycle as well. And I think that that's very important, that we get our kids recycling and understanding that some of these materials can be reused in other ways. So thank you.
All right, Holly, thank you. Frank, your thoughts. Do you believe in climate change, and what should our community do?
I do believe in climate change.
Let's let him answer. It's only a minute.
There are people on our coast who are experiencing the effects of climate change firsthand tonight as we sit here. I am very much in favor of green energy. I think, and all forms. I think the sooner we can get off of fossil fuels, the better. This past week, there was a report that came out that said we're 12 years away from irreversibly raising the temperature of the planet. I don't want to be part of that problem. I want to be part of that solution. Where we can be effective at the county level is encouraging green sources of energy like wind farms. Lots of places in this county we could support wind farms, and solar fields, solar farms. I think are two things we could easily do.
All right.
I'm out of time.
Thank you both so much. Let's take a minute now and have some closing remarks. Holly, you get to go first.
Sure. So one thing we didn't talk about is two things I would like to address, and I do believe the Department of Human Services, it is on the west side of town, and it serves a lot of people in need. I do believe that if we have the opportunity, we should try to open up a satellite office, or we should make Saturday hours for those individuals in need, so that the ones who truly need the access aren't having to find a 4-hour bus ride over to get the assistance they need. The other thing is I'm frequently asked about collaboration with the city. I do believe, fires don't respect city lines, so I do believe emergency management is an area that we can collaborate on, as well as our public safety issues. As the city adds more police officers, we're going to have to start talking about a new jail. And also water. I think water is very important. I worry about our rate of development and whether or not we're going to be able to abide by the 300-year water rule, which I do support. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Holly. Frank, you got a minute for closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for your time tonight. Everybody here wants smart, well-planned, sustainable growth, and as your commissioner, I will fight to ensure that land use decisions include appropriate infrastructure such as roads, schools, and utilities, provide additional fire, police, and EMS services, protect our water, environment, and natural resources, and protect our way of life. I pledge to represent the citizens first, our communities second, and party last. I pledge to fight for our share of the resources of the county's budget. I pledge to collaborate with the city government and utilities to ensure we are well served in District 1. I have the executive leadership, experience, and ethical background to fulfill these pledges. As I said at the outset, when you're deciding who to vote for, you should ask each candidate, why should I hire you? You should also ask each candidate, who is in your wallet? Don't vote for someone because you were told to. Think about what you did not get from the last county commissioner. That was respect for your opinion after the vote. I hope that I've shown you tonight that I am the most qualified candidate for District 1 and that my leadership, managerial experience, and financial management skills will meet El Paso County needs. Thank you again. Thanks tonight.
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to bring to the stage a couple of other candidates for county races. And again, in this segment, I will not be asking questions. We're just going to give the candidates 2 minutes to speak. And first, we want to introduce to the stage your two candidates for county coroner this year. We have with us this evening Chauncey Frederick and Dr. Leon Kelly. Thank you both for participating with us this evening. And Chauncey, we're going to let you begin. Again, I won't be asking questions, but you've got 2 minutes. The stage is yours.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say, before I introduce myself, is the president was elected to a higher office to serve our whole country. So what I'm saying, I'm not experienced at this at all. And he wasn't experienced at all. So that's what you're probably going to hear about me is I'm inexperienced. I haven't did this. So that's what the whole thing is going to be about on me. But my name is Chauncey Frederick. I served in the military for 20 years. I retired here at Fort Carson. I'm a father. I'm about to be a grandfather here shortly. So, when this whole thing came up to me, I had some people come up to me. Like I said, I served my country, but I had some people that come up to me and ask me, would I run? I said, well, I serve my country. Why not get out and serve the public? I love Colorado. I've only been here 6 years. I'm a Texan. That's where I grew up from. I'm a Texan. So I've only been here for 6 years. And I had people come up to me and say, will you do it? So I don't mind serving the public. I'm a regular Joe Smo. I don't have all these super degrees like a lot of people have, but I'm willing to get out and do the hard work. And I'm willing, like I've been in the military, I do have leadership. I know how to be a leader. I know how to get out in front of the people, let the people know what's going on in the public, what's going on with the family members, the data, all the research that needs to be done to get these people, let them understand what's going on in the county and what are some of the biggest things, the obstacles that we need to see and try to work on. Like I said, this is all new to me. Being up in front of everybody, talking to all these people, I never thought I would be involved in politics. It wasn't something that I wanted to get involved with. I like watching it and hearing the debates, but hey, I'm new at this. Like I said, none of all the experience. He probably has all the experience, but not me. He probably gonna tell you about his experience, which you probably gonna hear, but not me. But I can tell you now, I'm willing to get out, talk to all the people, do what I need to do to keep the public safe, and just talking to people, basically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chauncey. Mr. Kelly, you've got 2 minutes.
All right, thanks. So thanks for inviting the coroner candidates in the first place. Most of the time, people are too scared to invite us, so it's good to be here. I'm Dr. Leon Kelly. I'm a physician, forensic pathologist, and current deputy chief medical examiner for your El Paso County Coroner's Office. The responsibility of the coroner is to investigate all sudden, unexpected, and violent deaths. And that's an important job because that information is critical to the family of the person who's died, our law enforcement and district attorney who have to figure out if someone's at fault, and to our public health officials and local media who help ensure that the rest of us are healthy and safe. It requires advanced knowledge in forensic science and medicine. And we've been very fortunate in El Paso County that we've only had board-certified forensic pathologists serve as elected coroners since the 1960s. And that's for good reason. And that's because we're the state's largest medical examiner's office and most technologically advanced, and we serve much of southern Colorado. So, as Sean said, I'm going to talk about why I'm qualified. I've I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Indiana University. I have a medical degree from Indiana University. I have a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology from Penrose St. Francis. I have a fellowship in forensic pathology from the University of Texas, so we have that in common. In my greater than 10 years of service to El Paso County as a forensic pathologist, I've done nearly 4,000 autopsies. I've co-founded our local child fatality review team and teen suicide prevention working groups, looking to reduce our teen suicide rates, which we've done from 14 a year to 3 this year. I served as a governor-appointed expert to the state child fatality review team. I testify across the state of Colorado as an expert on domestic violence strangulation to reduce assault on women. I am a local expert in our efforts to reduce our opioid overdoses as well as our adult suicide. So, hope you don't ever need us. But in the tragic event you do, you want someone who's in charge of figuring out how and why the person you care for has died to be someone who has the qualifications and the skills and the training to know what they're doing. So I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Chauncey, Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for both joining us this evening. For CD5?
Yes. Or County Commission 5.
Commission 5. I see. Okay. All right. A couple more county candidates we'd like to welcome to the stage now. These are individuals who are running for separate offices, I should say county and local races, because we have Mr. Stephen Schleicher, who is our assessor, is running for re-election. Welcome to the stage. We also have a candidate for sheriff, Grace Sweeney-Maurer. Thank you so much for joining us. And is Dr. Tony Walewski with us, and he is running for the CU Board of Regents. So thank you all for being here with us. And let's see, which order have we got you all in? Everybody's already found their seats properly. Thank you so much. And again, I'm not going to be asking you any questions during this. You've got 2 minutes to speak and tell the audience why they should elect you. So take it away, Stephen.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. First, thank you, KOAA Citizens Project, Fox Middle School. First and foremost, I want to say hi to my beautiful, smart, 21-year educator, my wife, Kendra, who's in the back. Folks, my name is Steve Schleicher. I am your current county assessor, a title I have carried since 2014. I have been a member of this outstanding community since 1975, am a decorated Marine Corps veteran, served in your assessor's office since 1999, am a graduate of Whitefield High School, go Gladiators. I am a licensed appraiser in the state of Colorado, have an undergraduate degree in information technology management, an MBA, and a master's degree in project management. My team and I have worked diligently since 2014 to make the El Paso County Assessor's Office the model for Colorado in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and customer service. As your assessor, I approach each day concentrating on perspective and performance. My perspective comes from being an experienced licensed appraiser with 20 years invested in the El Paso County Assessor's Office, and am dedicated to continuously improving my own knowledge as well as the skills and service provided by my staff. Currently, I serve as the president of the Colorado Assessor Association. This opportunity allows us, the citizens of El Paso County, a seat at the state table on issues regarding our private property rights, the senior homestead exemption, the Gallagher Amendment, and other important matters that are happening here in the state of Colorado. Folks, we are performing. Over the last 4 years, I and my staff have continued to build relationships with our customers and ensure the adversarial personality that comes with many government offices is not one reflected in your assessor's office. I have restructured my appraisal and administrative departments, focusing on customer service and efficiency. In addition, I recently launched Assessor's new website, which, believe it or not, receives over 39 million hits a year. This new website allows me to offer more to you, our citizens. Most importantly, is a great tool in trying to make government more transparent. Since launching the new website over a month ago, has continually increased each month. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I can attest, as a journalist, I've used that website once or twice to try and find some folks' stories. So, all right. Well, Grace, thank you so much for being here. You're running for sheriff. You've got 2 minutes. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I am running for El Paso County Sheriff. I see several issues that need to be addressed. I've listened to people in the out in the community. I'm listening to people in Black Forest and Callahan and Peyton who have complained about not getting any response to their complaints of illegal grows in their areas. We have overcrowding in the jail. I propose to work with the mental health community and the citizens of our great county to find a way to get the mentally ill people out of the prison system, out of the jail system, and into a mental health facility where they can have their problems addressed. Another issue that is going on right now within the El Paso County Sheriff's Department is the employees at the county are able to contribute, I won't say encouraged, I apologize. They are asked to contribute to their boss's campaign. I find this to be a problem. I think that the people who work for the Sheriff's Department should not be contributing to their boss's campaign. I will make sure that that no longer happens. I want to eliminate that practice, and I want to find a better solution for who is staffing the jail. The jail is right now being staffed by deputies that we have trained. These deputies are trained to be out on the street, and they are working in the jail for up to 5 years. So those are a few of the issues I want to address. I will address right away the contributions. That will be one of the first things that I tackle. And then the other issue will be on down the line to look at how to have a better communication with the community and to address some of the problems that the community wants addressed.
Grace, thank you very much. We appreciate you participating, and I just want to remind everyone we did invite all of the candidates, but not everyone responded. And so, Dr. Walewski, the floor is yours. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, can I have his time?
Can you have his time?
Okay. I am Dr. Tony Walewski, and I'm running to be the next CU region for CD5, which is a 9-member board of directors that manages the 4 CU campuses, including UCCS, and its $4 billion budget. I am running because the region has done a good job creating a solid university system, but a lousy job in making it affordable and accessible to working class people, middle class people, and rural Coloradans. I am a high school teacher actually in this district. I teach at Pikes Peak Community College, and I teach at MSU Denver, and I have 28 years experience in the classroom. I also hold a PhD and a master's in education, as well as a Juris Doctorate and a master's in political science. I have some of the best students imaginable, and I want the best for them. They're like my kids. But if they want to go to CU, they're going to average $21,000 in debt. It's going to take them 12 years to pay it off. And the current regents just voted to raise the tuition and fees 4% next year. People in CD consistently tell me in CD5, I'd love to go to CU, but I can't afford it. It's the biggest barrier to getting there. I think there's a working class person that can do a much better job than the current CU regents who are wealthy people and who don't know what it's like to worry about paying for college. I want our children to have a chance, and they don't appreciate that. If people vote for the hand-picked successor of the current term-limited CU regent who's been part of the problem, nothing's going to change. Business as usual. As CU regent, I think the tuition reduction should be the #1 priority, and I'll make sure that is the #1 priority when I get this job. I graduated from the Air Force Academy, so I also know after 28 years of service how to organize, train, and equip to get the mission done. I'm going to take care of my people also, who are the students, faculty, and staff at CU. I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. And if you pick me, I'm Dr. Tony Walewski for the next CU region. I'm going to make sure that CU, all 4 campuses, are affordable for everyone in Colorado. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for your participation with us this evening. Thank you so much. I have one final local county race that we are going to welcome to the stage. Hi, come on up. Everybody, please welcome with me. This is Carrie Frederick, and you are running for County Commissioner District 5. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Kind of a late addition here, so my apologies that you're all alone on the stage here. But you will have 2 minutes to speak to the audience and let us know why the folks here should vote for you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm Carrie Frederick, running for County Commissioner, District 5. What makes me qualified for this job is I'm one of the many. I'm one of the many that has worried about how to pay all of my bills. I'm one of the many that's worried about health care. I'm one of the many that's worried about retirement. I've never been handed anything. Through my struggles, I've learned to work hard. I've succeeded and excelled at all of my professional positions. I've started two businesses that are thriving today. I've paid high prices for health care. I've paid my bills, I've paid off student loans, and saved for retirement. Not much, but I've saved for retirement. I am one of the many. You and I, the many, are the workers, the dreamers, the innovators, and we should be free to create and dream without high permitting costs and red tape. I've been 100% self-funded for my campaign. I will work for the people because I have not been purchased. I am free to vote the way the people want me to vote. I am free to pursue infrastructure projects that the people want and need because I have not sold myself to any political action committee. I'm Kari Frederick. I'm one of the many, and I'll work really hard for you.
Kari, thank you so much for joining us this evening. All right, at this time we are going to hear from our final panel of candidates. They are running for House District 18. We have a three-way race in House District 18. So please welcome to the stage this evening Mary Elizabeth Fabian, Mark Snyder, and Miley Foster. And I did already receive a couple of questions, so thank you to the members of the audience who filled these out. But a reminder that you can submit these. Oh, yes, sorry about that. Mary Elizabeth, you're on this side, and Miley, you're on the other seat down there. Very good. Everybody worked themselves out. So a reminder, make sure that if you have a question for our guests, that you fill it out, and it will get up here to the stage to me, and we will ask as many as we can. And with the three candidates in the race, we may take a little extra time on each of the questions so that everyone has a chance to answer. But let's begin with this. We had a story on the news this week, the Safe to Tell program. This is kind of heartbreaking. Oh, wait, you're right. I'm already skipping ahead to the questions. Thank you. Candidate intros, and we have a minute and a half for everyone. Mary Elizabeth, you're up first, so why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. This process is so important to our state, to our community. It's important. My name is Mary Elizabeth Fabian. I'm a wife to a 100% disabled veteran. I'm a mother of 3, 2 of which are disabled. I am a small business consultant, and I'm a volunteer from the word go. I love serving my community. I'm in this race because when I was looking at it, I recognized that people around State House District 18 are dealing with a lot of the same issues I am in education, in healthcare, and in public safety. And I have skin in this game. And I want to represent people, not myself, not a party, but the community, and have their voice be heard. Just like I advocate for my children, my goal is to advocate for this district in Denver. I believe that true representation comes from that place of a duty to your community. And I believe that I am the best candidate equipped to do this because at all times I will vote for my district and not for myself or a political party. Because that's what representation really should be about, is representing your community at all times.
All right. And Mark, thank you for reminding me. I was eager to start talking with you guys about issues again, but the floor is yours. Introduce yourself. You got a minute and a half.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for hosting this and for being out here tonight. My name is Mark Snyder, and I'm running for House District 18. My wife Kelly and I moved to El Paso County, to Manitou Springs, 24 years ago. She was my fiancée then. Since then, we've raised 2 wonderful daughters who are both in college right now. In my 20 years of public service in the Pikes Peak region, I've learned a lot. I've learned specifically from the ground up what the needs are of the people in House District 18 and how best to meet those needs. I have served 12 years on the Manitou Springs City Council, 6 as mayor, and that was a really turbulent time in Manitou Springs during the fires and floods and many other seminal issues, including the Great Recession. And I'm really proud of the way that we came together as a community and dealt with those tough issues. During my time as mayor, we were able to come together and we were able to bring a partnership together with the federal, state, and other local agencies to build a $10 million flood mitigation project to protect our downtown core of businesses and our residents in Manitou Springs. In the time I've served on just about every board and commission in El Paso County, served on the Board of Health, on the Pikes Peak Regional Building Commission, on the Pikes Peak RTA for 12 years, on the Pikes Peak Area Council of Government for 12 years, where I was elected chair for the year 2015. I've accomplished all this by engaging our community and really listening to the people who I think are our greatest assets in this community.
Right.
I've done a lot of other things that we'll talk about soon. Thank you.
Mark, thank you so much. And Miley, you're
Well,
next.
good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the sponsors. What a great community service this whole event is, and thank you. Well, my name is Miley Foster. Miley is pronounced like Smiley without the S, just in case you see my name again, not sure how to pronounce it. I've been a self-supporting single mom ever since I was 18 years old. I've had kind of an adventurous life, but that includes almost 20 years at IBM. And then after that, I've been a small business owner where I'm a financial planner and investment manager. The crucial theme of my campaign is that I'm running as a common sense independent. That means I truly can put people before party. 40% or over 40% of the registered voters in District 18 are unaffiliated. So that means you're not alone if you're fed up with party politicians who really put party loyalties ahead of people. So how can an independent really break the partisan divide and start getting things done? Well, it was Sherry John, an independent, not party leaders, who brought all sides together to pass the transportation funding bill this last session. 35-0. That's what an independent can do. That's what I can do. Focus on solving problems and not party politics. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've received a lot of great questions from the audience, so I think we're going to get into these. This first question is specifically from Miley, and I think we can answer it in 30 seconds, but it's a bit of a logistical question. We don't see very many independent candidates, so who do you plan to caucus with if you are elected, the Democrats or the Republicans?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot, and I will tell you I will caucus with my district, and I expect that when I'm in the legislature, both sides will be coming to me because my role as an independent will be to bridge the partisan divide and bring both sides together.
Okay. Well, let's ask you this. They've got a good question here about homelessness. It's directed to Mark and to Miley, but we'll go ahead and ask all three candidates for their responses. And Mary Elizabeth, why don't you take this one first? Denver at this time, they say, looks like California. What will you do to make sure Colorado Springs does not have so many homeless people living on our streets? And we'll do 1 minute answers for this. I'm sorry, before you get to answering. Yes. Well, I did 30 seconds because I didn't think it would take that much time to answer the which would you caucus with. So, ready?
All right. You know, there's a couple of issues with homelessness, and we keep hearing about POP, but the reality is about 15% of our homeless are actually individuals who have fallen down on hard luck, and they need a help up. We have those programs in place through community interactions and interventions, and I love the fact that Colorado Springs is such a loving community. The other portion of that is a more difficult issue, specifically because it deals with mental health and drug use. And so the issue is not just how do we get them off of our streets, because providing a home is only one piece of that. It's also how do we help them on a mental health standpoint? How do we get them the services that they need so that they would no longer participate in a lifestyle that's unhealthy for them, such as being homeless?
All right. Thank you so much. And Mark, why don't you take the question next? Again, what do we do about homelessness in our community? And as a state, I mean, is there anything that the state government can do?
Well, homelessness is on the rise everywhere, and we certainly have experienced it here. I'm a big believer in housing first. I think that's the key to getting to solving, or to at least addressing, the homelessness issue in our county. But there's really so many factors that go into this. There's so many things. I mean, most of the homeless that we have in our community are homegrown. They're from our region, from our community. They live within 50 miles of where they grew up. So I think we have to realize that fact from the beginning. And I think there's things we can do as far as creating a more stock of affordable housing. I applaud the City Council and Mayor Suthers for their attempts to increase low barrier housing. I think that's a great start. I've noticed in the veteran world, where I've been working with groups like Homeward Pikes Peak, that we actually have gotten to a point where we can provide services and an opportunity off the street for every veteran who wants that. I think we need to address it from a mental health standpoint. Certainly we need to enforce the parity laws that we have on the books that aren't being enforced now and make mental health services taken care of.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mark. And Miley, I'd like to give you a chance to respond as well.
Well, thank you, and it's good to go last because they've both mentioned some really good points. Lack of affordable housing is something that's very crucial in all processes of trying to help reduce homelessness, because there's quite a few good agencies whose whole mission in life is to help people deal with the problems that got them on the street to begin with. Unfortunately, those agencies have difficulty finding places for these people to stay. And it's not just more beds in a shelter, but it needs to be affordable housing that is accessible and useful for all levels of mental health treatment. And the state, because we'll be representing you in the state, is the state can provide some incentives. And so something that we could do as in the legislature is create statewide incentives to help improve the amount of affordable housing built.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you. I'd like to revisit some of the topics that we asked to our last group of state house candidates, and that has to do with transportation. We've kind of spelled out the issue. There's a few issues that are on the ballot already. And Miley, why don't you take this one first? What can our state legislature do to better fund highways in our state?
Well, there's quite a few different things that have been discussed, but that are available to us. Certainly there's issues on the ballot, both of which are challenging. However, our legislature needs to address the elephant in the room, which is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So at some time, we're going to have to step up, and someone's going to have to take leadership on that. And there are ways to fix that. If we address Tabor and the associated amendments, then we will be able to position Colorado to be much more fiscally responsible. Transportation needs a consistent, dependable source of funding so that you can plan efficiently for the future. And that includes all infrastructure, including water infrastructure. And I don't think we're really going to solve the problem until someone really takes leadership in solving Tabor.
Okay. Mark, your thoughts?
Well, I certainly agree that tackling the fiscal thicket, as the governor calls it in Colorado, is the number one thing we can do. Otherwise, we'll be back here year after year having the same discussion about how are we going to address the lack of education funding, how are we going to address the lack of transportation infrastructure funding. So there's parts of Tabor that I totally applaud. I think everybody should have a balanced budget, especially governments. I have no problem going to the voters. I think it's a great idea to go to them to ask for a tax increase. You make a good case, you'll get a good response. But the automatic ratchet down effects are crippling our ability to keep pace with a growing population and an expanding economy here in Colorado. So there's really a short-term solution. I think we can find in the budget more prioritize transportation funding higher in the priority list within that budget. Long-term, it has to be a comprehensive approach to address the fiscal thicket and take care of these draconian measures that hold us back in that regard. So otherwise, as far as the two ballot measures, we'll let the people decide. I'm not really in favor of sales tax increases. That should be a last resort. Thank you.
We appreciate your response. Mary Elizabeth, why don't you tackle this one? What do we do to better fund transportation in Colorado?
You know, it's kind of interesting because when I run my business, when I run out of money, I don't turn back to my clients and say, oh, I need more money. That's not how you run a business. Similarly, you should not be going back to the state of Colorado's residents and arguing that their taxpayer bill of rights is no longer something that they should be allowed to have. That was something our electorate decided on. it's not my job to come back and take it away. If it needs to be, then that's going to be a community grassroots situation. It's not going to be something that comes from me. In response to how to handle and fund transportation, you use it from the budget. We have been increasing budget spending in education and healthcare, but not in transportation, which is arguably just as important from an infrastructure point of view. We have a budget in place. We need to be going into those funds and actually using it and dispersing it equally.
Very good answers. Well, Mark, I've asked Mary Elizabeth and Miley to answer first, so we're going to ask you to answer first on this one. Let's talk healthcare a little bit. It's open enrollment period, and this year we did not quite see the same skyrocketing premium increases that we had in the previous 2 years, but it's not going down either. What can our state legislature do through the healthcare exchange or what have you to really reduce the cost of health insurance on Colorado families?
Well, I absolutely believe the first place we should start is creating a public option that's available to all Coloradans. I think sometimes we get bogged down in semantics and using terms. What I'm calling for is making the plans that are currently existing in Colorado. We have 2 wonderful state plans that are available to all state and public employees, as well as Medicaid Advantage or Medicare Plus is another program. I think that should be open to everybody in Colorado. Right now we have a fragmented system and we're all subject to the whims of the marketplace. And if we can create that public option, that's the only way we can get the economies of scale necessary to drive down provider and health insurance and prescription drug costs. So I think that's the key, is getting that buying power, bringing it together. And whatever goes on in the future, if the U.S. Congress ever gives us an opportunity to go for a more universal approach, I think we'd be well positioned to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mary Elizabeth, I'd ask you to follow up the same one. I kind of noticed you had maybe disagreed with what Mark had said about that. Your thoughts, how do we bring down some of the healthcare costs that we're dealing with here in Colorado?
I'm one of millions of Coloradans that has used the exchange, and honestly, you don't have very many options. There is a marketplace issue where we do not have enough insurers in the market to actually encourage a free market lowering of health insurance costs. We need to be doing more to encourage that. We also need to be doing more to limit the pharmaceutical costs that are rising up for Coloradans everywhere. I was speaking to a lady the other day who said that she spends over $600 for a 6-month supply on insulin, and in comparison, she has a friend who purchases insulin from Canada for $900 for his year. And, we should be looking for ways to reduce those costs.
All right, well put. Miley, your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I agree something's got to change, doesn't it? I actually, what I call the public option is something that I really espouse too, because I feel that the only way, in addition to economies of scale that it would afford, as Mark described, but also creating some competition so that if people have an option to choose, whether it be kind of what I'm calling Medicare that you can buy into, but also the private insurers, if they have to compete, they're going to be forced to get more efficient also. And forcing negotiations with the pharmaceutical companies are urgent, and that could maybe be something done sooner rather than later, because we're obviously paying the highest costs in the world in some places for pharmaceuticals. So there's some short-term things, but the big picture is we do have to wait for the federal government to do certain things, but in Colorado, let's step up right away, because health care is crucial to economic success here in Colorado.
Okay. Well, I've heard a couple of answers in there that I think I want to stay on this topic just for a little bit longer. And Miley, you and Mark had both mentioned, it's been called many names, universal health care, single payer health care. I think Medicare for all is one of the discussed things here. But do you think that Colorado could implement some kind of a single payer system? It was on the ballot a couple of years ago and failed, but your thoughts about that, Miley?
Well, my thought is I'm not for a single payer. In other words, the government being in charge of the whole process. What I'm more for is the public has a choice between an efficient marketplace that's state-sponsored and private insurers. So I want to have the option, and I want everyone to have access to affordable health care. And the fastest way that'll happen is if not only are there economies of scale, but there's also competition, and competition especially with pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Well, Mary Elizabeth, your thoughts? I mean, single-payer health care, Medicare for all. I know it's shown up in the governor's race, but do you think that's something the state of Colorado can take on?
I don't. I honestly, my husband is a 100% disabled veteran, and I have watched the VA administration, which is our country's best example of a single-payer healthcare system or a public option like this. It's not effective. 2.5 years to see your primary care physician is not acceptable. 2.5 years to get into any kind of specialized treatment for PTSD and items like that, not acceptable. And that's not something that Coloradans wanted so recently. Why are we bringing this back up?
Okay. Interesting response. Mark?
I am not an advocate for universal health care, and I know that because the advocates for universal health care tell me that all the time.
Okay.
No, and really, one of my mentors is a wonderful woman, Marcy Morrison. I think maybe many people know her, had a great career in politics and ended as an insurance commissioner for the state of Colorado. And she has sat me down and explained to me the actual economics of how we cannot afford to take the risk of trying to go with a universal plan at this time. We lack the size and the scale that we would need to institute a plan on our own.
Okay.
Now, I'm open to other ideas. I've looked at some of these ideas of maybe a regional co-op type of thing. If we get the buying power of, say, California and larger states involved, we might have that opportunity. But for now, that's not really a viable option. I think the voters spoke 2 years ago with the dismal election results as far as that ballot measure went. So I think right now we need to pursue what we can. We take on what we can, which is to me a public option that would increase competition and lower costs of providers and health insurance.
Well, let's get to one of the audience questions here, another one of them. And Mary Elizabeth, I think I'll start with you on this one, but it asks, what is your position, this is for all three candidates, but we'll begin with Mary Elizabeth this time. What is your position on state laws limiting abortion access?
Roe versus Wade happened. That is the law of the land at this point. And so I don't think state laws should try to go up and supersede a federal situation. This is how it needs to be right now. And honestly, I would never choose to vote against my district on anything regarding women's access to health care.
All right, thank you very much. Mark, your thoughts?
I am 100% in favor of a woman's right to choose, and absolutely 100% support reproductive rights for women to make the decision over their own bodies and what they need to do as far as the future of their life and the future of a potential child. So for me, it's not even really a debatable issue. I don't think there's any role really for the government involved in a woman's personal decisions that she makes, and I will never waver on that. Thank you.
And Miley.
Well, let me echo that, but add to it in that one of the things I think everyone agrees on is that we want to reduce the number of abortions. And no one starts out in life planning to have an abortion. However, there are situations that come up that if the person had been a little bit more educated or had affordable access to birth control, might have helped avoid that situation. So that what I add to what Mark said is that I will advocate very strongly for affordable birth control and education available to everyone, no matter what zip code they live in, so that we could ultimately reduce the number of abortions. Now, I've heard it said they should be legal, they should be safe, and they should be rare.
All right, thank you all so much for your responses. And I'm afraid we have reached the time of the night where it's time for our closing statements. So Mary Elizabeth, why don't you begin with you've got 1 minute for closing comments.
The role of a representative is to represent her district, not herself, not her party, but 100% of the time, the district. That means that when I go to Denver, My job is to represent the voters of House District 18, their children, and every other person who lives in this district. I'm a small business person. I'm a fiscal conservative. I understand how to balance a checkbook because I've been doing it since I moved out on my own at 18. I care about our veterans. I care about our communities, and I want to actively advocate for our educators and our students and our small businesses that are struggling right now with issues with public safety. My job will always be to be an advocate and to be a vote for House District 18, and I thank you all for your time tonight.
Well, thank you. As the only candidate here not accepting any special interest political action committee money, I can truly say I will always represent the people of my district before any party politics or any partisanship. There really are, as there are 3 candidates in this race, you really only have 2 choices. You can continue to vote for Republicans and Democrats and continue to get the same results in the legislature, which involves a lot of partisanship and dysfunction. Or you could support my independent campaign. And I've told you before what an independent can do. And as an independent, we will bring people together with long-term thinking to solve real problems. Well, I am not a politician. What I am is an experienced small business owner, an experienced leader of large teams. And I ask for your vote so that we could bring real change to the legislature.
Haley, thank you so much. And Mark, you get the final word of the evening, so your closing remarks, sir.
Thank you. You know, I have prepared remarks and whatever. I just want to speak to you all directly right now. I've been 20 years, as I said, in public service in this community. I've literally cast thousands of public votes. I've participated in the budgeting of well over $1.5 billion in local budgets. I'm an open book. You know, if you have any questions on me, you can go look on my record and see where I stand on the issues, how I voted for the last 20 years on the issues. And I'm very proud of the fact that, you know, I've had a great career, frankly, and I'm very proud of that. But it's not just me. I mean, Manitou Springs, I was able to take increase our general fund reserve 17-fold. When I took over in 2010 as mayor, we had $112,000 in the bank. When I left 6 years later, we had $1.9 million and growing in there. And there's a lot of tough decisions, but you know, I address them all the way I'm going to address everything, the way I'll work for you. I roll up my sleeves, I do the hard work necessary to find a solution, engage the people in the community, because the people of House District 18 are our greatest asset. They're wonderful, there's so many great ideas. The best ideas we have come from the ground up, rarely from the top down, and I will work tirelessly on your behalf, the people of House District 18.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our House District 18 candidates for participating tonight. We really appreciate having you here for this evening's forum. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, I want to introduce one final person. This is a big thank you, really, to the Harrison School District 2 for allowing us to use their facilities this evening. In fact, there will be an issues forum that we are working on for next Wednesday. That's going to take place at Sierra High School, and my colleague and co-worker, the very talented Allison Zimmerman, is going to serve as the moderator for that issues debate. We hope to see you all there. But if you would please welcome from the Harrison D2 School Board, Ms. Jeannie Orozco. Thank you, Jeannie. Might need to get you that microphone there.
Good evening, everyone. Is that on?
Yep.
My name is Jeannie Orozco. I sit on the Board of Directors of Education for HSD2, and you're here this evening in our wonderful building, so we greatly appreciate you all being here and coming out tonight and educating yourself as voters in our community. I wanted to speak really quick besides a thank you and let you know that HSD2 has an issue 4E on the ballot. We're asking our local neighborhood to vote a bond for our school district this year. It has been 17 years since voters have invested in our schools, and we really need help. This is one of our newest schools, and we're looking at infrastructure. I know that there was issues with the Wi-Fi all night and technology, and that's one of the wonderful things we'll be investing in. So just remembering that to push our children forward, we have to be up with the times and in technology, and they deserve a good roof and good floor and good heat in their buildings. And we're just asking you to invest in our future, really. And so that way the next round of our youth can be up here advocating on behalf of their communities. Again, thank you so much, and you have a lovely evening.
Jeannie, thank you very much. Folks, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And on behalf of our good friends here at the Citizens Project, as well as the League of Women Voters, and all of the staff at News 5, we really appreciate you being here and being this engaged in your local process. Election day is a month away. You'll be getting your ballots in the mail pretty soon. Thank you again for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.